Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Is that okay? Good? Back? Cool. How's everybody doing so far? Great. Just by show of hands, how many people were surprised by some of the data that Kirk just showed? No surprises. That's actually a good thing, and I'll speak to that in a minute. Kirk's a good friend of ours at Google and Google Consumer Surveys, and we've done a lot of work with him and folks at Kantar, and it bleeds really nicely into what I was hoping to talk about today, which is, at a high level, how does Google Consumer Surveys, and I think hopefully many others in the industry, think about the mobile sort of future, where we're going with mobile, or thinking about mobile research. And what I think you'll find is where we deviate a little from what you've probably heard over the last few days is we think that the best way to get at mobile is to stop thinking about mobile, which may seem counterintuitive, but hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So I'm going to move through the slides pretty quickly. Hopefully that'll leave some extra time for Q&A at the end. But really the theme of what I'm going to talk about is how we think that if you put the respondent first, and you sort of build solutions and research practices around the respondent and the respondent experience, the result is, one, much easier to migrate and take advantage of different devices and screens, and two, just a much better research experience from end to end, both on the respondent side and on the researcher side. And a big part of that is going to be about working together as an industry, not just as a client or a supplier or a technology platform. So you've probably heard this a few times the last 48 hours. So I heard it yesterday. So you'll see, so 2014 is the year of mobile. I think you probably heard it last year also if you were at this conference, and 2013 was the year of mobile. You may have even heard it like 7 years ago when the first iPhone came out, that was the year of mobile. And for any of you who have been around a little longer, maybe it was the BlackBerry, or a little tongue-in-cheek, maybe it was back when we had the what I know as the Zach Morris cell phone. And the reality is that this is the age or the era of mobile. We live in a world where mobile is, or multi-screen, is the dominant form of consuming the internet and consuming content. So I think one of the first points I want to make here is that just thinking about this as the year of mobile, or mobile as a sea change or a tide change, kind of does us a disservice, because it just is the reality. This is where, we talked about this yesterday on the panel that I was fortunate enough to participate on, this is just where people are today. You've also probably seen some graphs like this. And I had a funny conversation with one of the folks in the audience yesterday about how we're still seeing graphs like this all the time in presentations, even at a mobile research conference, because we need to, quote, make the case about mobile. So this graph is from Morgan Stanley, and it shows that somewhere around 2013, mobile internet users will exceed desktop internet users. Hopefully many, if not all of you, have seen this. The funny thing about this graph, it was first published by Mary Meeker back when she was at Morgan Stanley in 2010. So we've been showing the same graph. You can see 50,000 different versions if you Google it for years now. So again, we've been continuing to make this case about mobile's coming, mobile's important, but we've stopped thinking about whether mobile is here and how to react to that. And so that's really, I think, our first premise when we think about the future at Google Consumer Surveys and how it pertains to research, is that mobile's not really a trend, it's a reality. Okay, so then if that's the case, how are researchers leveraging mobile? And this kind of speaks to the things that we've been talking about this last 48 hours. Well, so the first thing is, generally they're not, right? So many of you could have different viewpoints based on what business you're in, client, researcher, supplier. But according at least to the GRIT report, only 27% of researchers used mobile at all in any capacity in the last year, in 2013, which was only 4 percentage points higher than the year before. And so what's interesting to me is that we all sort of raise our hands, rather don't raise our hands when I ask if what Kirk shared was surprising at all. And so we're sort of at this impasse, right, where the results aren't that surprising that, according to the room, that mobile data would look very, very similar in most cases to desktop and other forms of panel data, but yet we're still not doing it. And so the question is why, especially in the context that if we look at our marketing counterparts, their ad spend and their investment in mobile is growing substantially year over year. And so, well, what about before we get to the why, let's talk about the people who are going mobile. And this is what it probably looks like to most of you. You're taking the same surveys and the same panelists, and you're just sticking it as easily as you can on a screen, right? If you can take 40 questions and put that onto a screen that's only 4.4 inches, that's mobile research. And I think just by sort of the reactions I can see on some of the faces, we can all agree this probably isn't the best way to go. And why is that? That's because this is how many minutes we, as users outside of the research space, have on our phone every day. So I've got 26 minutes that I'm actually going to do free stuff on my phone. Now, as you can imagine, 24 of those minutes are probably going to be spent on some combination of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, right? Or texting. And then you've got to, or outside of Facebook, Instagram, and texting. And so you've got to capture my attention. So as you can imagine, if you do a 30-minute survey on mobile, you're asking someone to give you 100% of the time that they have on their phone. And so that's why we hear a lot about mobile-optimized research. And if you saw me in the panel yesterday, you probably heard me say that we don't really think about mobile-optimized research. We really think about respondent-optimized research. And I'll get to that in a second. So what is mobile-optimized research? And we've heard a lot about this the last couple of days. Again, it means shorter surveys, special device formatting, taking better use of rich media, contextual clues, things like that. But what does it sound like to researchers? Well, to researchers, it sounds like more work, less data, and oh my God, there's no grids. And so the reality is, as a researcher, and this kind of characterizes that impasse or that chasm between what the data shows and what we actually do, is that we get it. Mobile sounds pretty good. We know people are using these devices. We know that we have to do things differently on mobile. But it sounds like extra work, and I think we're all busy enough as it is. And so even though we know that mobile presents an opportunity, and again, these slides, hopefully your reaction to these slides is we know this, right? That's what I'm going for, is that we know that mobile means global reach, better respondent scale, turnaround times. On the right-hand side, you can see all the fun stuff we think about with mobile devices, the context and location, video, audio, all the stuff we can't do online. And so what can we do to avoid falling behind as an industry when you think about marketing or product where they're really focusing on mobile-first experiences? So the biggest thing that we think is going to drive this change from Google Consumer Surveys' perspective is that it really has to be about collaboration. And usually in research, we think about collaboration as sort of a two-person effort. And in our case, we really see this as three, and we think this is different or something that's changing as we move into mobile. So the first is the clients. So we really think the key for a client, if you're buying research, is that you have to think about things from a respondent-first strategy. Not even a mobile-optimized or a mobile-first strategy, but a respondent-first strategy. So what does that mean? So from mobile-optimized to respondent-optimized, for the most part, it means the same core principles as mobile-friendly or mobile-optimized. So it means shorter surveys, it means more visuals, it means less burden on the respondents, but it goes beyond that. And so it means having a single cross-platform survey design. And the reason for that is if you have to design a desktop survey and a mobile survey every time you do a project, you're never going to do it. And Kirk talked a lot about the effort that it took even just to run the head-to-head tests to have an optimized and non-optimized survey. Well, so here what I'm talking about is you, as a client, shouldn't design your surveys this way, and you definitely shouldn't make it okay for your research firms to expect you to, or to do it for you in that way. So you have to put the pressure on them. It means being able to do more frequent and nimble projects. If you're doing shorter surveys, faster turnarounds, you shouldn't need to do one huge survey every quarter to get at that big quarterly business problem. You should be able to collect data all the time. You should be informing business strategy by being able to run surveys much more quickly because the response rates are higher, the turnaround times are better, et cetera. A better value exchange with respondents, and taking advantage of a lot of the cool data that we have today. Right, so with Google Consumer Surveys, we use behavioral and inferred data. There's tons of other data bases, models, big data sets, if you want to call them that you can use to amplify the short surveys that you're doing. So what about suppliers? So the suppliers, I think, are the ones who must be responsible for educating their clients on the different practices you can use to magnify short surveys and mobile survey data or cross-platform survey data. And so if you go to the folks at Kantar, if you're working with Kirk or any of the other suppliers, you should ask them about modularization, about data fusion, about modeling, things that can take a small amount of data and extrapolate with really high quality results that look like you just ran a 100-question survey. And then the third piece is platforms. And actually, this is where we've gotten the question for about 2 years now. Where do we see ourselves in the market research industry? This is where. We're a platform. At Google, our job is to build technology. We're pretty good at it. We're better at that than helping you design your surveys. And so we're going to spend our time trying to figure out how, as you move to mobile, as your respondents move to mobile, you can have the right technology to really take advantage of that. And so just quickly to talk about, in light of what we're doing, but really what the industry, what the other platforms and technology providers, of which there are many in this room, are doing, what does that mean? That means taking advantage of all the things that a mobile device can do. Geolocation, image capture, web browsing, all the different things that go into a phone that can amplify even a shorter survey, right? If I can have someone take a picture of their shopping cart, I can probably shave a good number of questions off the survey that I need to ask them, especially if I can do it on the fly in any size retailer. And so what does that look like in terms of scale? So one of the questions came up yesterday in the panel about whether we think all the stuff that mobile can unlock for us is really feasible. Is it going to be another year and a half, 2 years, 3 years? It might, but scale is really the key to us, right? This goes back to the example I gave yesterday about Walmart. It's not just about being able to do a survey when someone leaves a Walmart. It's about being able to do a survey when they leave Joe's Pizza on the side at the end of the street. For that guy who doesn't actually have customer stat data today. There's a lot of money to be made there in the market research industry, and there's a lot of value to be given back to businesses of all sizes. And for us, we think, of course, it starts with Android. So there are over 1 billion devices already in circulation, and either Gartner or Forrester or somebody predicted that we would sell about 1 billion plus more this year. So you think about what that means if we can get those users to answer surveys, and that's why we came out with Google Opinion Awards. So we have 500,000 users in 4 countries just a little bit over 6 months after we launched, which makes this already in 6 months the largest mobile panel, the largest, at least Android-based panel in the world. And so if you think about that, and I mean in terms of not taking normal respondents and having them open a survey on a mobile phone. And so that's our effort. We're trying to move to that scale, and we want to do it 40 countries, 40 languages this year, all through one platform. And again, there are many other providers, platforms that are doing similar things to this. So I just use us as the backdrop, and that's the key, that last part, is that one platform. You come and you build a survey, and the same survey that works on desktop works on mobile. It's a lot less work, it's a lot better data, and it really, I think, frees up researchers to lead their organizations, which to me is the key. If we know that mobile is going to dominate everything from marketing to product to research, if we're the last people to get to mobile, kind of like we were the last ones to focus on online, it puts us in a really tough position to be thought leaders, to be the people who bring change in our organizations. We know how important the research data is, right, and bringing that to all of the different stakeholders in and out of a company. And if we're at the forefront of the innovation and the sea change, it really empowers us to be better contributors to our business. And so we at Google, from a platform perspective, really want to try to enable that, and enable that immediately. Great, so that's all I have. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I'd love to take some questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Maybe I answered all of them, which is good.
That's the best kind of presentation.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.